In this video, I'll walk through the P2P-04 subcontract processing workflow in SAP. This process applies when a company cannot manufacture a product in-house. In this case, the company creates a purchase order for subcontracting, supplies the necessary materials or semi-finished goods to a subcontractor, and the subcontractor performs part of the work on behalf of the company. On a side note, a subcontractor is a third party hired to carry out specific production or processing tasks. Before we begin, let's review a few things you'll see in this flow. First, you'll notice something called supplementary apps. These are additional or optional SAP apps that can be used alongside this process. Each supplementary app is briefly described on the diagram, so if you ever need to perform these extra actions, you can easily refer them here. Next, in the process diagram, yellow boxes represents SAP apps, while white boxes represents tasks done outside the SAP system. Now let's go over prerequisites. Before starting this process, the purchasing information, bill of materials, BOM, for the semi-finished product, and the manufacturing version must all be registered in SAP. Let's begin with the subcontract processing flow. This process starts with two possible paths, free of charge supply and chargeable supply. For the free of charge supply, in this situation, the company provides components to the subcontractor free of charge as part of the subcontracting agreement. The subcontractor uses these materials to manufacture the product and only charges the company for the service provided. In SAP, the purchasing representative creates a purchase order and sets the item category to L subcontracting. This indicates that the company is providing components to the subcontractor. Once the purchase order is created, the purchasing approver approves it using the My Inbox app. After approval, the subcontractor reviews the purchase order. Once reviewed, the flow continues to P2P-02 available to promise, where the delivery date is confirmed. This concludes the free of charge supply path. Next, let's look at the chargeable supply path. In this case, the company sells materials to another company or subcontractor for their own use, meaning it's a sales transaction, not part of a subcontracting process. Depending on the situation, the process may connect to P2P-01 for purchasing finished products, O2C-05 for supplied items shipped from the company's warehouse, or O2C-14 for direct shipment of supplied items. This concludes the as-needed section of the workflow. Next, let's move on to the section when supplying materials. First, use the Stock Multiple Material app to check that the material is managed under special stock type O. This means that the material is available for use by the subcontractor, but the ownership still remains with the company. If no material supply is required, the flow ends here. If materials need to be supplied, there are two options, manual and automated processing. In manual processing, the purchasing representative sends shipping instructions to the warehouse. The warehouse representative then uses the post-goods movement app to issue the components to the subcontractor using movement type 541. In automated processing, the purchasing representative uses the subcontracting cockpit app to create an outbound delivery directly. The warehouse representative uses the shipping schedule and stock allocation, then proceeds to the P2F18 picking flow. This concludes the section for when supplying materials. Next is the section when finished goods are received into inventory from subcontractor. Once the subcontractor completes the processing, they send a good receipt for the subcontracted product to the warehouse. If inbound delivery data is confirmed, the warehouse representative uses the Post Goods Movement app to update the stock, transferring ownership of the finished goods back to the company. If there is no confirmed inbound delivery data, meaning that the P2P-02 was not used after creating the purchase order, then use the Post Goods Receipt for Purchasing Document app instead. The warehouse representative will post the goods receipt, perform inspection, and proceed with the relevant next flow based on the result. This concludes when finished goods are received into inventory from subcontractor. Finally, let's move on to invoicing. After delivering the goods, the supplier issues an invoice to the buyer. This section is also divided into two paths. Goods receipt based invoice verification, which is when purchasing representative can schedule an invoice automatically after the goods receipt has been posted using the Schedule Supplier Invoice Jobs app. It is invoice based verification. Purchasing representative can manually create a supplier invoice in the system after receiving it from the supplier using the Create Supplier Invoice app. Once the invoice is recorded, the accountant reviews and approves it to begin the payment process to the supplier. Depending on the payment terms and conditions, this may trigger different workflows for payment processing. This concludes the P2P-04 subcontract processing workflow.